President, Chief of Staff at the Law School. We want to welcome everybody here, students. Looks like the rugby team is well represented, which is about time. I see some awesome faculty, in particular Professor Mike Hutter. It's good to have Professor Hutter here. And let me get Mike Hutter. Professor Raycon and lots of former trustees as well. So listen, my whole purpose here is to thank all of you for your support of this amazing scholarship. And you're going to hear so much about John DeMatteo today. We're going to let Bill do all that. And my other big thing is to just simply say thank you to Bill Poulos, class of 1980. This guy has been an amazing, I mean, you are a hero to us here. I would hire you as a major gift officer tomorrow if you wanted to do that.
I'm available.
He has done this with such grace and just such skill. He has made all of us extremely proud. And we really do appreciate this. So on behalf of the law school, and Dean will have to be here in a little while, but on behalf of the law school, thank you. Thanks to everyone who's contributed to the scholarship. We've already awarded it, I understand.
Yes.
And we'll do that by definition in perpetuity. And you are lawyers and you know what perpetuity means, right? Forever. And so it's going to be something that a student is going to benefit from forever. And that means we'll remember DeMatteo forever. So thank you, Bill, and on with the show. Thanks to everyone for coming.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Bill Poulos, and I'm from Alpha, New York. I'm a proud member of the Albany Law School class of 1980. I'm here today to celebrate the John P. DeMatteo Memorial Scholarship with you right here at Albany Law School. Thank you all for coming out on this beautiful day. With us here are John's namesake, John DeMatteo Jr., and John's grandchildren, Nicholas and Jake, together with Jake's wife, Jenna, great-grandchildren, Leah and Lena, along with John's cousin, Carol Ann Kelly, and husband, Jim. John. Before we get started, I'd like you all to know that we have another very special guest with us today. One of John DeMatteo's closest friends on the law school staff. An extremely special woman in her own right, who, just like our dean, who we expect here in a few minutes, coming from the Board of Trustees meeting, has been featured with a piece in the Albany Times-Union newspaper, and who, just like our honoree John DeMatteo, served 33 years, loyal years, on the law school staff, and who, at the young age of 102, decided that she could make it here today with her son, the Honorable Anthony Carbonello. I'm privileged and I'm honored to introduce Mrs. Jenny Carbonello. Why don't we have Jenny stand up? A round of applause. Thank you very much. And thank you, Jenny, for helping thousands of students all through the years. I'd like to recognize the people that have supported this program and all of the efforts that have been made getting it off the ground. First and foremost, and she's not here right now, we start with the boss, the president and the dean of this law school, Alicia Roulette. In 2015, Dean Roulette inherited a very difficult situation in Albany Law's history, and with the support of an enthusiastic board of trustees, has turned this school around and got it back on course. She did this during the most difficult times, the pandemic times, and everything that came along with it. And speaking of the board of trustees, since even the boss has a boss, we will be honored to have with us shortly the recently elected chair of the board, the Honorable Deborah Trays. You might be interested to know that Chair Trays and Dean Roulette were students at Albany Law while John DeMatteo was working here. Most importantly for today, Dean Roulette signed the agreement that governs administration of the DeMatteo Memorial Scholarship. Albany Law has criteria for creation and maintenance of the scholarships. Suffice to say, the policies are stringent, the criteria and thresholds are significant, and major milestones have to be reached before the founding donors can have a say in scholarship administration. On a leap of faith, without talking to me, Alicia Roulette waived many of the school's scholarship requirements and agreed to relax the terms for this program in order to get it going. She took a chance that the DeMatteo Scholarship Program would get off the ground, gain some traction, and would become one of the school's mainstream scholarship programs. Now, with all of that, when she and the board chair walk in, wherever I am, I'm going to break and I'm going to introduce them and ask you to stand up and give them a round of applause. Now, there are many others to whom I owe thanks. Now, everybody knows how this works as a speaker. You put the list together, you hope you've covered everyone, and I hope I have. But I might miss someone, and if I have, I'll buy you a drink down at the courtyard, and later on, maybe across the street in the recovery room. Please, let me get through the list, and then we can give them all a rousing round of applause. First, Frank Willey, class of 1978, my teammate, Albany Law rugby player, world-class businessman, Albany Law School major philanthropist and benefactor, and the principal donor to this program. Next, and he's not here, and I really want to get on his case a little bit. James Haggard, class of 1984, my teammate, Albany Law rugby player, former chair of the Board of Trustees, Albany Law School philanthropist and benefactor par excellence, a graduate of the Rugby House, where I lived with a couple of my roommates right over there at 579 Providence Street. Lifelong friend, and as I've read in a recent Super Lawyers magazine, the Beyonce of the Capital District legal world. Next, to both David Jaden, Major Gifts Officer at Albany Law School, for his gentle guidance and encouragement for 3 years, and for his advocacy inside the law school for this program, and particularly to the fellow that was just up here, Dr. Jeffrey Shantz, PhD, the Chief of Institutional Development here at Albany Law School, by helping me in ways I probably don't know to follow through with my dream of honoring Dad, without both of whom it's it's likely I would not be standing here today. Next, and I see him, Jeff Seaver, one of our greeters today, the Albany Law School alumni and special events coordinator, and his staff, who began helping me when this program began. Then he became my point of contact, and he has quarterbacked this event today by arranging all of the details, including notices, announcements, sending emails, scheduling, logistics, creating, printing, sending, dialoguing, arranging, and perhaps toughest of all, working with me, culminating in this one-of-a-kind celebration. Next, Professor William Watkins, who passed away 36 years ago. Many of you here can testify he was a genius intellect, master teacher, longtime chair of the admissions committee, founder of the Albany Law Rugby Club, and for whom an Albany Law Scholarship is named. Next, Professor John Welsh, Albany Law Class 1955, appointed acting dean of Albany Law School 3 different times. Longtime member of the admissions committee, tough as nails, recipient of the Board of Trustees Gold Medal, 50 years at Albany Law School as a student, as a professor, and dean, good friend and executor of Professor Watkins' estate, now in his 90s, living near his alma mater of Notre Dame University out near South Bend, Indiana, and for whom an Albany Law Scholarship is named. Next, former registrar, Ms. Helen Wilkinson, and her colleague, Mrs. Jenny Carpinello, who, among other things, were responsible for processing and signing the checks for all of the student maintenance workers. Ms. Wilkinson, for whom the Memorial Student Assistant Fund is named, and Jenny Carpinello, being called by the Times Union the mom of Albany Law School. Next, the Honorable Christopher Quinn of Nassau County, Long Island, class of 1980, the first Albany Law student that I ever drank beer with. My classmate, workmate, roommate, and teammate who introduced me to John DeMatteo 45 years ago in 1977. Judge Quinn, hoping to keep the catcalls from the audience to a minimum. Next, to my Albany Law roommates, and I have 4 of them, and 2 of them are there today, and also my teammates, all of whom were my classmates, maintenance crew workmates, and my best friends, including the one and only Patrick J. Maloney, here today. To all of the donors of this program, big and small, the current rugby club members and men and women, and they're over here, and finally, and most importantly for today, to John P. DeMatteo, who we knew simply as Dad, for whom the Albany Law Yearbook was dedicated in 1983 and in 1988, citing him as one of the foundations of Albany Law School. Could we take a moment now to recognize all these people with a grateful, resounding round of applause? What is left to be said about John DeMatteo? Is there anyone in this room that does not know the history and legacy of the man whose life we are celebrating today? Well, using military parlance, for many years he was the maintenance chief right here. I refer to the military, of course, as John DeMatteo was a U.S. Army fighting infantryman, 4-time Bronze Service Star recipient, honored for his valor as a member of the Korean War, frozen chosen. Something that he kept from all of us his entire life. Today, our military is represented by my high school teammate, retired 42-year U.S. Navy captain and professional engineer, Evan Love of Niskayuna. Captain Love created and designed the Military Honor Shadow Box display that we all saw on the table as we walked in today as a gift to the DeMatteo family. He is sitting with his high school swim team co-captain, my brother Robert Boulos. Please, both of you and any other veterans in this audience, please stand and be recognized. Now, as promised, the boss has shown up. Alicia Woolette, why don't you come up and take one of these chairs, Dean Woolette, and I'll finish my introduction for you, and we'll wait for the board chair, who you'll have to introduce me to. But picking up where I last left off, on a leap of faith, Dean Woolette waived many of the school's scholarship requirements and agreed to relax the terms of this program to get it going. And you heard about her yeoman service over the years to this place. And with all of that, and upon the announcement of her pending retirement as dean this next academic year, and to salute Board Chair Trays as well, I ask you to join me in a standing ovation for both of them. Continuing on, John DeMatteo was a determined, dedicated, hard worker, dutiful, loyal, and committed to Albany Law School. The man was always here. According to John Jr., Albany Law School was the lifeblood that ran through his veins. For a time, he and his family lived in an apartment right here in this building on the first floor. I'm told now it's the law review offices, and this was the childhood home of John Jr. And he'll tell you that as a youngster, he used to ride his tricycle and his skateboard up and down the halls of this, what they call now the 1928 building. When we were here, it was the only building. How fortunate for John and his family, and how fortunate for Albany Law School to have your most valuable working man in this building 24 hours a day. Naturally, over the years that changed and John's family moved to the village of Rotterdam, but Dad's hours working at the law school did not change. He always seemed to be around. For instance, in our freshman year, Chris Quinn and I would be mopping the cafeteria close to midnight, and Dad would silently appear around the corner, and there he was, not praise for my work. For instance, he had a lot of fun giving me, not Quinn, but me, a hard time with remarks such as, "Where did you learn to mop? In the Navy? You're a terrible worker. I don't know why I hired you. I think I'm going to fire you." And fire me he did. 4 or 5 times my first year. Twice I thought he was serious. The first time, of course. And then there was the aftermath of the 1978 Saturday night St. Pat's party right here in the gym, where Mr. Quinn and myself set up a social corner and introduced many people to a new type of refreshment called Wapatula, made with moonshine and mixed up in one of the school's 33-gallon garbage cans on wheels. Politely stated, there were several locations in this school that were an after-party mess. Unfortunately, Quinn and I were both no-shows for the cleanup that began just hours early Sunday morning. Our penance to Dad for reinstatement included time in what we knew as the main entrance vestibule down those stairs by cleaning every little window, and there were hundreds of them, both sides, no streaks. And Dad would come around every little while, and he would look at the windows, and then he'd go like that and say, "There's a streak on that window." And of course, the upperclassmen had a lot of fun with us that day as well, with a lot of commentary passing by. So I'm not certain how the maintenance crew here actually came into being. From what I've been able to piece together, at some point the law school came up with the idea of offering financial aid to students while inviting them to serve on the student maintenance crew. Certainly the concept of a work-study program is not unique in academia. The Albany Law School maintenance crew work-study program, now that was unique. John DeMatteo was given the responsibility of supervising this select portion of the student body. I believe Dad had faculty advisors to assist him with selecting the members of the crew. I believe those advisors included Professor Watkins and Professor Walsh, both of whom, not coincidentally, were on the admissions committee. And along the way, they were joined by a third party who's now in his 49th year of teaching here, Professor Mike Hutter, right over there. Those guys were in charge of who got into this place. And you could not walk the halls without feeling the presence of Professor Watkins, Professor Welsh, and certainly John DeMatteo, whether they were physically present in the building or not. They had the willing cooperation of Miss Wilkinson, whose behind-the-scenes role was much more powerful than most people knew. Gaining appointment to the maintenance crew was also somewhat of a mystery. Seemingly, there were some legacy positions passed down from graduating seniors to younger students. A recommendation from Dad usually started the process, and as far as I knew, the recommendation needed the approval of, or at least the acquiescence of, Miss Wilkinson. Professor Watkins and Welsh had a handle on the history of each student and had ready access to the student body records. I believe Professor Watkins conferred regularly with Dad with respect to the maintenance crew composition and made personnel suggestions. Now, where these meetings were held and when these meetings were held, I never had a clue. Perhaps not surprisingly, a good part of the maintenance crew, at least in our time, was comprised of law school rugby players. but not all. Many students, like the very famous Richard Parsons, have testified publicly that they mopped the floors here at the law school. And of course, there were other maintenance duties other than the dirty work of sweeping and mopping. For instance, dusting the stacks, the shelves in the library with a feather duster, watching the parking lot for violators, and the cake of cake jobs, wiping down the water fountains. Is anyone surprised that our man, Jim Hacker, had the water fountain job? The cleanup crews began their happy work either at 7 in the morning, Monday through Friday, or 11 o'clock at night, Sunday through Thursday. On Friday night, the nighttime guys began at 7 o'clock after the school happy hour, which was held weekly in the courtyard, or in the east wing. The weather never got the best of us, and ran from 3 in the afternoon until 7 in the evening, excluding the cake eaters, the guys with the feather dusters like my teammate Todd Weber from the class of 1978, and his classmate, another water fountain man, Gene DeSantis, who was Chris Quinn's maintenance crew sponsor and is here with us today. The workers on the morning crew and the evening crew actually showed up to work about 50 minutes. And we were paid for 2 hours of time. Like I said, it was work study. There was a certain amount of pride each student had being a member of the crew. Some of us referred to our maintenance crew appointments as DeMatteo scholarships. We knew the place would not look good without us. That pride was instilled in us by John DeMatteo, our boss. He set the example. It required a measure of discipline as a law student to show up every day to clean the school, and it engendered a good deal of camaraderie. We had some fun as well. That camaraderie and that esprit de corps was fostered by John DeMatteo, who simply referred to himself as Dad. The sobriquet of Dad was very familiar, as used in, you know who's watching you do your work today? Your dear old dad. Familiar questions arose between maintenance crew members, and they went something like this when the need arose. Where's Dad? What did Dad say? Does Dad know what happened? John DeMatteo did it all in this place. Of course, he was the custodian. He had the custody of this building and the custody of its grounds. In truth, he had the custody of us all, our safety and welfare in this building. He knew the sinks, the showers, the lockers, the library, the lounges, the classrooms, the cafeteria, the stairs, the doors, the dumpsters, and the driveways. He had a ring of what seemed to be 50 keys on his belt. I had no clue where all those keys fit, but John did. He knew every bolt, every lock, and every corner of this place. Every faucet, every switch, and every dial. He knew every office and every faculty member. He was always working, and he was always on call. When he sat down for a break in the cafeteria, many times to play a silly little game of liar's poker with the guys in the cafeteria and drink his favorite grape soda for a quarter out of the vending machine, nobody thought twice about it. Nobody made him punch a time clock when I was here. You didn't have to. He was always here. He was always available. He was always working. He was the master of his domain. When something went wrong, it didn't matter if it was the dean, the faculty, the staff, the students, everybody looked to him first for the solution. He was the go-to guy. I still hear the phrases in my head. Where's John? We need to speak with John. Uh-oh, we got a problem. Where's John? It also took a special type of person to supervise and ride herd on the maintenance crew. As students and as rugby players, we were smart and we were tough. Nobody to fool around with on the rugby field. We had what I call now an enhanced sense of humor. Dad put up with all of our pranks, jokes, no-shows, and excuses. And we were not afraid to socialize. Although always in good fun, sometimes, well, it could get a little loud and a little boisterous. Like when we had a motorcycle chopper riding around the inside of this gym during a Halloween party. Dad saw us coming through the cafeteria with that thing, and he said simply, "You guys are going to get in trouble." But you know what? We never did get in trouble. And in truth, I think Dad enjoyed us year after year. But he never admitted while we were here. John DeMatteo was a confidant and friend to those in need. That was true for everyone. Dad was the first call when the deans or the faculty needed something. Whether it was to unlock a door, get some supplies, give a ride, pick somebody up at the airport, or simply to have a cup of coffee and get some advice, so many people turned to John DeMatteo. This was a role he played without recognition or fanfare. The man was discreet. He would not talk about what he saw, and he would not talk about what he did for anyone. But everyone knew John DeMatteo was the man. Although as students we thought we were under so much stress and we were having such a terrible, difficult time in law school, Dad knew better. He'd seen the worst, and he survived the worst. He knew what hell looked like. In his own way, he tried to show us all the way with camaraderie, humor, leadership, and joy to be, the joy of life. In many ways, he was a little bit like Santa Claus, because just when you thought that you were having a big problem, many times he would come by with a kind word, with some kind of a gesture, a cup of coffee, a quarter, or a suggestion, or maybe even a solution to whatever issue and problem that you thought you were having. Essentially, John DeMatteo was a version of what we would now call the Student Affairs and Wellness Departments, well before they came into existence here. John DeMatteo was a one-of-a-kind icon here at Albany Law School. He selflessly took care of thousands of people over the years, and he never sought the limelight. There are several hundred maintenance crew alumni that could testify about their time with Dad, as he was the lifeline of support for so many. He was so humble, and he would never take credit for or try to explain to you, the greenhorn student, what he was doing for you. Helen Wilkinson knew, Professor Watkins knew, Professor Welsh knew, and John DeMatteo knew. They knew that Dad's family sacrificed for his service to this school. They knew that he was loyal, dutiful, durable, trustworthy, hardworking, and never quit. Those were the qualities of John DeMatteo. And now, you know. That's why we're here today. as everyone has gone on and become who we are and gone on with our careers, it was John DeMatteo that kept this place going, kept the lights on, kept the place clean. And were it not for him, all of our lives would be different. Miss Wilkinson has the Emergency Scholarship Fund so appropriately named for her. Professor Watkins has a memorial scholarship. Professor Welsh has a scholarship in his honor. And now their trusted friend, John DeMatteo, the beating heart of this law school, now has a memorial scholarship in his name. As long as Albany Law School exists, this scholarship will ensure his legacy. I invite you to join me in celebrating this momentous occasion to honor the life of soldier and supervisor John DeMatteo with the commencement of the John P. DeMatteo Memorial Scholarship Program.
About what he said about the social corner in St. Patty's Day in 1978. It never happened. First, Bill said some very impressive things about Professor Watkins, Professor Welsh, Professor Hunter, and Helen Wilkinson. I can say to you folks over there, I got into law school probably because of Professor Watkins, because I was a college athlete. I got a job on the crew because Gene recruited me to play basketball, I think, and I had that job at basketball before I even stepped foot on the campus. But those individuals shaped all of us, I believe, shaped our lives, and I personally probably would have graduated if it hadn't been for them and my roommates here. Did we cause some issues and problems? Yes, we did. Bill put out certain things about working 40 minutes and getting paid for 2 hours. When you put it out the first time, I said, Bill, that's, theft of services, so please, be careful about what you're putting out to everybody. And he says, oh, statute of limitations is long gone. I can safely say that I have a picture with Bill and John in the kitchen at your house, John, and to his last days, the last time I saw him in the kitchen, he was still trying to cheat me out of Liar's Poker money, with the dollars. So the best thing happened to me getting here was John DeMatteo. I do have one objection to something that Dr. Shantz said. I don't think there's anyone in this room that knows Bill Poulos would ever be used the word grace. So he said grace and skill, maybe some skill, but absolutely no grace.
Bill, those were surprisingly good remarks for you. I'm shocked that you were able to string a sentence together. I met John 50 years ago in my freshman year in this joint. It was the worst year of my life. I mean, it was just awful. The stress, the challenge. And I started working on the crew with him, and he was the most endearing person in the law school to me. He was always wonderful. So one night, so many years ago, I became a political prisoner by way of the Albany Police Department, enforcing their anti-fat and obnoxious laws. And I get picked up, and I might have said some things to the police officer, and that's the way it was alleged, but I am not admitting to that. And on the way over, I might have said a few other things to the police officer, and it's a bad idea to say that. So I go down into the jail, they take my belt, they take my shoelaces, and I say, I might have called the cop a name. I said, what's the bond? He says, $1,000. And I'm thinking, I'm screwed. I'm completely screwed. I can't call my father. There's nothing I can do. I called John. He came down and put up the $1,000 and got me out. So on the way back, he's not saying anything to me. He's just, I'm worried. It's a pretty bad experience, actually. And the bar committee didn't see the humor in it either, I might add, but that's a different topic for another day, right? So I'm coming back, doesn't say anything. Nothing. Just go back. Comes up. Couldn't be nicer. Next morning, I get to go to work, and he says, "Kid, come here." He says, "You're a moron." Right? So now, it's graduation day. I bring my father, my mother, my two sisters over, and I say, "This is John DeMatteo. He's the guy who got me out of jail. He got me through law school." My father and him start talking. He turns to my father and says, "The kid's a moron." My father loved him.
I'm just an ordinary attorney, and this is the first time I get to talk after two judges and have the last word. So I'm enjoying this right now. I've learned two things knowing Buckley for 42 years, living with him for a couple of years. One, you never try to tell more stories than Buck. And two, you never, ever challenge his history of what happened here at Albany Law. I do want to reiterate two things that has previously been mentioned. John was scary. I mean, he was like omnipotent. I don't know that they had video surveillance, but if you screwed up at midnight, 6 o'clock the next morning, he knew exactly what happened, exactly what you did, and exactly how it had to be fixed, which always happened. And the other thing is the motorcycle story. If any of you have ever had any interactions with any rugby team at any level, herding kittens is not, it's like herding wild cats. I mean, trying to get control of these people is almost impossible, and John did it with grace, with humor, with a firm hand from time to time. But picture this, the rugby team decided to come to the Halloween party as a motorcycle group. And all I remember is we had a real motorcycle, and we are carrying it up the stairs, and John walks around the corner, and if any of you know John, all he did was turned around and walked away. The other thing I will reiterate is a lot of us didn't like law school. A lot of the people on the rugby team didn't like law school, and a lot of the people on the maintenance crew didn't like law school, and a lot of us literally would not have made it through if it wasn't for the friendship and the camaraderie that we developed through those things. Thank you.
John, I did not know who he was in 1970. I was here to take the bar exam in July 1970, sitting in the East Wing, and I had this young woman staring at me. I said, "What are you staring at me for?" I was getting really nervous. Through the first morning, she kept on staring. And then we had the break. I then saw her go to another man. And then she came over to me, and it was Jenny Carpinello, who was proctoring. And she said, "You're not an Albany Law graduate, are you?" I said, "No." I said, "Well, he says it's okay for you to sit here." When I moved here to Albany, moving into my office, John helped me set up my office. And I was unpacking, and I had a picture of my dad, who was a Marine Corps fighter pilot, and with his Marine Corps helmet back then, that little leather hat that they wore in World War II. And he asked me, "Your dad in the service?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Is he combat?" I said, "Yes, World War II in Korea." And John then said, "We'll get along well." I didn't know what he meant. And then my dad was up a couple of years later, and John saw him, and he came over and said, "Do you mind if I talk with your dad?" I said, "Sure, not a problem." So about a half hour later, my father comes back, and this is John. John was the most earnest man, most modest man. And he said, "You know, this man survived Chosin." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, my dad was flying Corsairs, the Marines were flying support, while the Army remnants. And John had in the battalion, I think he was a battalion of about 500 men. There were 5 Army men left. They had come down Chosin, and John fought his way through. He was such a battler that Chesney Cole, the most decorated Marine in Marine Corps history, went up to John and said, "I want to give you a battlefield promotion." And John said, "I'm not in the Marines." And Chesney said, "I don't give a damn." John was amazing. 4 Bronze Stars. And you never knew it. I never knew it. fact that he survived is the measure of the man. And I think that's why, part of it, why he was so devoted to this law school, so devoted to the students, so devoted to the faculty, trustees. It was one big family. And I think John realized when he survived CHOSA, he had a mission. And that mission was to serve others. And I think it's absolutely spectacular, Bill, what you've done to keep his memory alive. And I think it will stay forever.
Thank you, Professor Mike. The blessing of this scholarship from the woman that signed it into existence, one of the great leaders in Albany Law School's history, the president and dean, Alicia Ouellette.
Thank you both. I don't think there's anyone in the world who has more passion for three things: Albany Law School, rugby, and John DeMatteo than this man, Bill Poulos. This is an incredible effort and an incredible thing you've done. Can you give It's amazing to see all of you coming out as we make this scholarship official and have this memorial. It's really moving and really special. And seeing the students, right? It's just great. So thank you all for being here. And Jen Carpinella, I haven't seen you forever. Thank you for being here. This has been a great ceremony. You've got a cocktail party on the other side, and I know this crowd, you want to get down there. My remarks are fairly short, but though without your leadership efforts and your significant financial contribution and your incredible hard work to reach out to all of you who contributed, this wouldn't be happening. We wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't have the family of John DeMatteo here with us today. Thank you so much for being with us. What you've done is to keep this great man's memory alive. It's a legacy that will last far longer than any of us do. It's really special. Albany Law School and the students who receive the scholarship will be impacted by John DeMatteo even 27, 30, 50, 100 years later. The hard work and dedication and loyalty that he instilled in so many of you will be part of our school. Of course, minus the actual physical labor. We're not going to make the scholarship recipients clean the water fountains. We don't do that anymore. Some things have changed. Right?
Don't worry, the water fountains was not too tough.
So to you, Bill, and to all our donors in the room today, we appreciate the lasting connection and financial commitment to create this scholarship on behalf of Albany Law School and the future recipients of this award. It's going to change their lives, right? Our gratitude goes out to all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, as indicated earlier, even the boss has a boss, and it's my pleasure at this point to introduce the recently elected chair of the Albany Law Board of Trustees to offer us a few remarks, and then we're going to have a resolution for the DeMatteo family. The Honorable Deborah Trees.
Thank you, Bill. Thank everyone for being here. What terrific stories. At the board, we often think and talk about what a unique community is Albany Law School. And, listening today about the stories that all of you have about John DeMatteo, he is such a great part of that legacy, and it's what makes this school so special. So it is really a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you. I have a small John DeMatteo story, which was I was a basketball player for 3 years, and I don't think John thank you. It's my great pleasure to tell you that this afternoon, the Board of Trustees of Albany Law School passed a resolution honoring John DeMatteo and his service to the school, how important he was to this community, and honoring the scholarship that Bill and others have worked so hard to establish. It's a great legacy for the school, it's a great legacy for the man, and thank you all for being here. And I'm going to present that, it's too far down.
I'm going to read the resolution first.
Okay.
Okay?
You want me to come down?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, just as soon as I finish, we'll have people in the team and the family.
Okay.
Okay?
You can't read me.
All right, my friends. As indicated by the boss, the Albany Law School Board of Trustees has created a resolution in favor of the DeMatteo family for presentation today, and I've been elected to read it. Presentation today, and I've been elected to read it. Will do my best. And here we go. Whereas Albany Law School employed John P. DeMatteo from February 1, 1963 until his retirement on March 31, 1996. And whereas John P. DeMatteo proudly and passionately served Albany Law School's maintenance department for 33 years, becoming a one-of-a-kind icon responsible for maintenance of Albany Law School's 1928 building. This one right here. And whereas Albany Law School named the DeMatteo Gymnasium for him in December of 1989, thereby memorializing his historic connection to one of the school's most utilized and valued spaces. And whereas John P. DeMatteo supervised the Albany Law School DeMatteo Scholars, a group of students comprised of rugby players as well as 2L and 3L students that work to maintain their proud alma mater by wiping water fountains, sweeping and mopping floors, cleaning windows, fixing broken items, being parking lot attendants, and most of all, creating that bond that will never be forgotten. And whereas, over the years, the sobriquet of Dad was coined because of John's demand for his crew's respect in their work, installing remarkable loyalty and respect by serving as a hard-working role model, often showing up at odd hours without notice to be sure this building was maintained and the workers were hard at work. And whereas John P. DeMatteo went the extra mile for all the people of Albany Law School, especially providing hundreds of hours of support for faculty and staff, helping them with their work and personal needs. To be sure, this community was built on friendships, loyalty, and honor. And whereas the friendship of Professor William the Watkins, Miss Helen Wilkinson, and Mrs. Jenny Carpinello, together with John P. DeMatteo, provided exceptional experiences helping students to succeed at Albany Law School and become the remarkable individuals they are today. And whereas John P. DeMatteo was a 7-year veteran of the United States Army who earned a Bronze Service Star after serving in the Korean War, where he was tracked as one of the frozen chosen, thereafter saving lives in combat, becoming a war hero, decorated for his bravery and valor. And whereas John P. DeMatteo was a proud husband and a proud father, very loyal, very protective, very proud of his family, especially his wife Bernie and his 2 sons, Evan and John Jr., incorporating them as part of the Albany Law School history. And whereas, and I didn't write this paragraph, in his memory, Bill Bulos, class of 1980, through his unprecedented respect for John P. DeMatteo, established in the year 2021, through personal funds and raised funds from alumni and friends a new scholarship in his honor named the John DeMatteo Memorial Scholarship, awarded yearly to a male or female rugby player or a male or female United States Armed Forces veteran. And we have, going off book for a minute, the first recipient of the DeMatteo Scholarship. Stand up. Hey, and finally, be it resolved that Albany Law School hereby memorializes John P. DeMatteo as a shining example of service to our community. That through this remarkable scholarship, we once again express our sincere gratitude to this beloved man for bonding decades of alumni and friends with amazing memories, thereby creating a part of the Albany Law School family culture that remains a staple of this community, supporting this event today. And so now, at this time, I'd like to invite up Dean Ouellette and Chair Trays and the DeMatteo family. Let's get this resolution front and center, and let's get a couple of pictures, and then afterwards, we're going to get a picture of the maintenance crew and then select others. Come on, John, get up here.